Praise the Lord. My name is Gabrielle Morris, and I'll be your moderator for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in into a new episode of My Damascus Road Experience, brought to you by Greater Works Church Youth Ministry. We're elated to have you guys tuning in today, and we'll start off by introducing the panelists for today.
Praise the Lord. My name is Alicia Gilmore.
Praise the Lord. I'm Jamari Renee Patton.
So we're going to start off by asking you guys, prior to attending Greater Works, did you guys feel like you were saved? And also tell us what led you to Greater Works as well.
Okay. Start off with your first question. No, I didn't feel like I was saved. I still had worldly things in me. I enjoyed like worldly music, TV shows, hanging out with friends, doing worldly things. And what brought me to Greater Works was my mother. God led my mother here, and I followed along with her.
Did I feel I was saved before coming to Greater Works? Absolutely not. I did not feel like I was saved. I thought I knew what salvation was and how to get to salvation, but turns out I was wrong. Thank God I was wrong and I found the way. What led me to Greater Works was actually my sister. She was led to Greater Works first, and through her light, I was able to come to Greater Works and learn the truth as well.
Now, if you guys would tell us about your Damascus Road experience.
My Damascus Road experience, it started out, God had isolated me, family and friends. He took most friends away from me 2019. The pandemic hit, he isolated me more from family. I didn't hang out with the same family members. My group began to get smaller. I was depressed. I started getting depressed. I would be such a loner. And one night God gave me a dream, and a dream like I was just in a dark road, just kept walking, like it was dark streets, and I heard owls. It was just scary. And the next day my grandma, she called me and she was like, Mama, what you doing? And I was like, nothing, doing nothing, just chilling. And she was like, well, since you out of school, I need you to get in that word now. It's time for you to read. I said, yeah, got you. I'm gonna do that, I guess. But I didn't. And then one of my cousins, he got saved before I did. And he came over a lot, and he was telling me, how he feel. He feels great. And I saw how he was feeling. He was feeling very happy, very peaceful. And he sent me videos of a pastor preaching about how the world's going to be, the 5 seals of the world. I began to get a little terrified. I couldn't sleep for 3 days straight. It's like God kept picking at me like, okay, you're going to learn. You're going to learn, and you're going to get saved, or you're just going to be with the rest of them. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be saved. So I began to read. I began to fast. I began to pray more than I ever prayed a day in my life. Those 3 days, those 3 nights, I just prayed straight. I fasted for 2 days, 12 a.m. to 4, which I told myself, I was like, I will never fast to no 4 p.m. Like, are you crazy? I'm hungry. I get hungry, I get thirsty. But, it was always a saying, if you meet God halfway, he'll meet you halfway. And it was so true. So to sum it all up, my Damascus Road was really isolation, and God began to just always whisper in my ear, like, hey, you're gonna get saved, you're gonna be my child that you were born to be, because I was always a set-aside child. From even my cousins, I was always a set-aside child. My grandma always spoke over me, you're my anointed child. So, I just really felt that way during the pandemic, during the time of quarantine. I was like, I am that special anointed child. Mm-hmm. So I just, with the pastor, first lady, it took 3 days, but I received the Holy Ghost, and it was an amazing experience.
Amen. That's amazing.
So to give a little bit of my testimony, I grew up in a Baptist denomination church, and my father was a pastor and my grandfather was a pastor. So I grew up in church a lot. Bible studies, Sunday service, choir rehearsal, youth ministry, like all those different things. So within that, I got to see a lot when it came to the adults of the church, and what I saw from a lot of them was them one way in the church and them another way outside of the church. So with that, it made me really jaded towards church people. It made me jaded towards Christianity and all the things under that umbrella. So as I got older, I just kind of thought, if this is what it's like, then I'm good on that. I can keep doing what I'm doing, and later on down the line, maybe I can get a relationship with God. But as I got older, my dad would always call me up and just say, you need to go to church, you need to go to church. And like throughout college and all that, I'd call him and I'd say, Dad, I did go to church, and I would let him know I went to one of those big, the popular churches, and he said, well, that's not a real church, you need to go to church, you need to go to church. So I eventually just said, he eventually told me, if you're not going to go to church, at least get in your word, and then ask me questions. So as soon as I started to get into my word and have a true desire to get to know Christ, things started leaving. My job ended up cutting my pay. The person I was dating ended up leaving. I got into a car accident, and my car got totaled. And so I was in a position where I couldn't afford the new car that I had. I couldn't afford rent and all these different things. So it was like things in my life that I thought were important just started dropping off of me. And God, like Jemiah said, God isolated me from the things that I clung to, and they were so important to me. So within that same time frame, I saw a change in my sister, and she had been coming to Greater Works, and I saw such a shift in her. She was doing things like going to Bible study on Wednesdays, and that was just not something that we always did, like once we got older. So seeing her do that, it just made me wonder, what is she learning over there? What is she, what is this pastor, saying to her, that's different from other people, because we've gone to church together. So the day that I believe I started my Damascus Road was the day of her baptism. So I came into the church, and it was very different from what I was used to. And so I sat in the back, and the darkness that was within me did not really agree with anything in the church. Like, I just sat there and I was like, I don't know what this pastor's talking about. Like, what is he saying? Like, that is not what I learned. Like, he is wrong, and everything that he was saying, I just wanted to disagree with. So I just later on, it was just like in my spirit to just learn more. There's more, and I feel like that was God telling me there's more, and it was in my heart to just come back. And after I left that day, we got into the car after her baptism, and I said, I'm never going to that church again. I have a bad habit of telling God what I'm going to do. And that day I told him I'm never walking back in that church. And here I am, a member of Greater Works, baptized and filled with the Holy Ghost.
Amen. Those are very powerful testimonies. My takeaway was isolation from both of you guys. God will isolate you and take some of the things that you're clinging on to the most to get you to where he wants you to be. So that was my biggest takeaway. Very powerful testimonies once again. So that leads me into my next question, which is, after you guys became saved, did any of your family members or friends start to notice a difference in you or your fruit being shown? If so, give us a time where you noticed and how it felt to have your fruit noticed.
Okay, so when I got the Holy Ghost that day, I went home and I was trying to act sad or whatever to my mom. She was like, "Did you get it?" Because once again, like I tried 3 times and I got on the 3rd time. And I was like, "Yeah." No, at first I said no. Then she was like, "Oh," and I said, "No, I'm just kidding." She was like, "You did." And she began to like, smile and speak in tongues, and she began to cry and hug me. And it was just like, honestly, to her, it was like a weight lifted off her shoulders, and so was mine. And then a week later, I hung out with my best friend, and usually I would play worldly things in the car, worldly music in the car, and she heard me playing the Clark Sisters, I think, Brought the Sunshine. She was like, "What happened to so-and-so?" I was like, "Girl, I dropped her. They're dropped. All those people are dropped, friend. I got saved. I got the Holy Ghost." And she was like, "No wonder you over here glowing. You looking real good, friend." I said, "Thank you, friend." And I began to minister to her about what was my experience, and she was like, "Yeah, I need to go to church with you." And she came one Sunday, but we're gonna continue to strive for her to come. And but like I feel so much like peace in my life, and even my siblings and cousins, like they respect me, like no cursing, no drinking, smoking, at least around me. And I just have more respect towards me now, and I just feel very peaceful and very happy every day in my life. So
After I got saved, I remember maybe a month or 2 after I went to it was like a large homecoming thing for the college that I went to. And of course, like back before, I would have just been so ready to like turn up and do all these things. And I went with my friends, and as soon as I walk onto like the area where everybody's hanging out, like I get handed a shot, and you would have thought like somebody pointed a gun at me, because I was like, and they were just looking at me like, "What is?" I said, "No, I don't drink anymore. Like it's not my lifestyle anymore." And you would have thought I pointed a gun back at them, because their faces were just like they didn't know how to handle it. And now, if they ask me to go anywhere or do anything, a lot of times they don't even ask me, because they know I'm gonna say no. They know that there are a lot of things that I'm not gonna tolerate or be around anymore. And I even get just slight comments like, "Oh, she's a Mormon now. She doesn't drink. She doesn't do, all these different things." And I honestly, I take it as a compliment, because my standards, my boundaries, and you respect me for being me, because I'm gonna always respect myself.
My next question is there any advice you give to someone? Is there any advice you'd like to give someone who is struggling or battling different things in their life on how? Okay. Is there any advice you give to someone who is battling and struggling in their life on how they can come closer to God?
Yes, I would first tell them, do not procrastinate, because that's really what comes with it. You start procrastinating, like, if I get the Holy Ghost, will I still have friends? Or I don't want to get the Holy Ghost because I know, I'm still want to listen to so-and-so music. So, like, procrastination is really a spirit. And so you just really have to not even procrastinate about getting the Holy Ghost. Because, honestly, when you get the Holy Ghost, your eyes gonna be open to who was your friend or who was your down family member and who wasn't. So I would honestly tell somebody, do not procrastinate, because everything is temporary. God is so real. So if you feel like you want to go to Little Baby concert, turn up for 2-3 hours instead of go to church for like an hour or so, then do that. But just know, Little Baby is temporary and God is forever. So that's all I'm telling
My advice would be to just move. As soon as you hear God tell you to move, move. Do not, like she said, don't procrastinate. Don't put it off. Just move, because if you don't and you wait and you allow God to just move in on his own and start stripping you down, it's not going to be pretty. So it's best to just go ahead and move when God tells you to, and listen to him. And when you're in a point where you're wanting and you're seeking and you're desiring God, like that desire, it's already there. So to have that, you need to hold on to it, listen to God's voice, and go to church so that you can inform yourself on how to listen to the word and how to pray and all those different things. So just make sure you're listening to God, and you're in a church that actually is teaching you correctly.
So my takeaways from that were, don't procrastinate when God is touching your heart. You want to move when God is dealing with you, and also to be in the right church so that you know that it's leading you down the right path as well. You don't just want to be in any church when you're seeking God, because that can lead you down the wrong path. So definitely want to move when God is telling you to move, and that'll help you get to be on your Damascus Road as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. Unfortunately, it has come to the end, but we're so very thankful for our panelists, Alicia Gilmore and Jemiah Patton, for being on today's episode. If you guys would do me a favor and be sure to subscribe, comment, like, share this video, and we'll see you guys in our next episode.